Hello, Megan.
Hello, Michelle.
Welcome to Sisters.
Sisters.
There were never such devoted sisters. I'm so excited to be here with you this afternoon.
Oh, I'm excited to be with you too.
You know, we have been talking all about the senses in our last set of podcasts.
Yes.
Yeah, we ended with taste.
And it was tasty indeed.
It was delicious. You know, every time we talk about something specific, a memory or something about my version or memory of you, and we then dig into your brain about it, right? Because we always want to know how you're neurodiverse or just Rosie's brain, really. I think we're just going to call it how Rosie's brain interprets it.
Yeah.
And then we try to think about something that maybe we can talk about with our community. So I'm starting to have conversations with people about these podcasts, the people I know who are listening to them. So it's been kind of fun to get their feedback. Yes, I had one friend who really wished she could taste things like you do. She was like, man, I wish I could have that party in my mouth. I don't know. It's pretty cool.
I mean, it sounds cool until it happens every day of your life.
So this brings me to all of the alphabet soup of what you've been diagnosed with over the years. We haven't really dove into this much, but I want to dive into it now a little bit. So I'm going to start with ADHD.
Okay.
Okay. I know there's more things you've been diagnosed with, but in terms of how your brain processes things, I'm curious as to how you self-define ADHD. And ADHD technically is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Is what the actual term is in the DSM. And if you go to some people who know a lot of stuff and they give you that diagnosis, that's something you could be diagnosed with. What's your understanding of that?
Yep. Yep. I've never thought about it. Well, okay, so this is a tough one because it's just me.
Yeah.
And how do you describe yourself?
Right, which is kind of what the whole podcast is about, right? But yes.
Well, I mean, I would assume, okay, if I'm being honest, ADHD is the thing that is both amazing and awful about me. It is my greatest asset and my greatest weakness. And
interesting.
It feels like ADHD is like a superpower that takes time to, it just takes a lot longer to hone the skills. And like once you can become a master of ADHD, you can use it to your advantage. But all of the time getting from novice to master, which I am not there. I am not nowhere near a master.
You're not saying,
I'm not
claiming
close.
master.
No, I've been doing it for 43 years and I'm still not a master. But the first thing when you asked me about it, I instantly thought of all the bad things that it is. You know, it's the challenge of attending to everything I'm supposed to attend to, you know, remembering things. It's the hyperactivity of, you know, not being able to keep my body still, all the times that I'm in public that I am supposed to be a certain way and my body does not want to be that way. And so it's funny, like that's the very, very first thing I thought of. And I've been trying to recalibrate how I view my brain because for so long, ADHD has been a negative. And now I'm trying to recognize that there are good things. And I think that's what this podcast is helping me with. But okay, let's think of the positives. The positives are that I can hyper focus on one thing and nothing can stop me, right? I've been doing that tomato timer. I don't know if anybody's ever done it before, but it's like the Pomodoro timer.
There's a bunch of them. You have one
yeah.
that actually looks like a tomato.
It's
really
like a
cute,
little
actually.
cute tomato. And it's like, hello, I'm working.
Yeah,
and then
I
it's
was looking for it because I was working with some students the other day. And I was saying, let's try this because my sister tells me how many tomatoes she's finished, right? 25-minute blocks of time. I got 4 tomatoes in today, Michelle. So I was looking for it and I couldn't find the tomato one. I just found all these boring ones, but I found the tomato one again. Oh, so good. I feel like we should post that one because it's so cute.
It's just so adorable.
And it lets you do like 25 minutes on and then 5 minutes off or longer breaks. And then you come back and it kind of reminds you to take breaks, which can be really important.
Yeah, I think the taking breaks part is vital for health. I think if you were asking me what ADHD is, the timers, I can do 6, 7, 8 tomatoes in a day, which is 25-minute chunks.
I know. I tried it. I told you I tried it a couple weeks ago. And I think I got to my 3rd tomato time of hyper-focused. I had to take a nap. I was so tired. I could not do it. I was like, this tomato thing does not help me. When we're talking about this, though, I've been reading a lot of books about ADHD. And so I want us to, at some point, take some of these books and kind of pick them apart. But the very first thing I did when I started this with you is I just started looking up the symptoms of ADHD. So the symptoms, I think, speak to the negativity, right? Because there's all these symptoms of what's not okay or what's, I assume, might feel negative or problematic maybe, if not negative. Could cause you issues.
The fact that you're calling it a symptom, right? Like,
right.
The fact that they're diagnosed as symptoms, that's negative in a way.
Right.
Well, if you were to look at any disease or any issue that you have in your body, there's always symptoms. Like, hey, what are the symptoms that you're experiencing? And so let's fix those symptoms. And if you look at like ADHD drugs, they're all working to lessen the symptoms so that you can be a part of society. So yeah, it is you're right. You're absolutely correct that I've never thought about it that way, but the symptoms are very negative.
And it's because they don't write down the symptoms of hyper-focused, which might be considered positive, right? They don't say it that way. They say it as distracted, distractibility. So there's 2 sides. I think like you were just saying, there's these 2 sides of the coin. And I'm kind of curious. I do want to go through these symptoms because I do think there are some really powerful stories and things that you've had happen in your life that can be helpful. But I would love it as we're talking about this if we could figure out what is the other side of the coin, right? So if the symptom, and I'll bring one up here in just a minute, but if the symptom has sort of a negative connotation, is there the positive? And if we can't think of the positive side of it, maybe the community that might be listening might be able to help us with that. Because I think it's really powerful when I talk to students to help them understand that what they're going through is real, but that also there's this great advantage sometimes that we don't think about. Okay, no, so true. I'm going to bring up the very first symptom. I don't even remember where I looked it up, so I can't post it. But if you like Google symptoms of ADHD, and the D, right, the last D is disorder. So of course that they are saying, as you said, that somehow you don't fit in. I think I've brought it up before, but if I haven't, I'm going to bring up carpool. Okay. We carpooled to school.
Is that a symptom?
No.
Oh.
but
you were bringing up symptoms. You're like, carpool.
I'm bringing up a symptom, wow, but I'm really bringing it up through a story.
That's a very specific symptom that this website had. Wow. Okay,
carpooling is the symptom. Sorry, so there's a story, but then the symptom I think goes along with it. Okay. So the story is getting you out the door for carpool. Okay, yes. So I just want everyone to go back to the 80s for a minute. If you weren't born yet, then let me just tell you. There was this thing called carpool. I don't know if people do it anymore. But where parents would all decide, if you had a school that didn't have buses, that if you were in the neighborhood together, one parent would drive one day and another parent would drive another day, right? And we had no less than, I feel, how many of us were in that carpool, Megan? Do you remember? There's the 3 of us.
There was 7 seats in the car. So you had like the middle row, back row, both could handle 3. and then also the front seat.
But we had a caravan. We had like an actual van.
Yeah.
No one else had this. So there was 7 kids in this thing, and there were cars that held no more than 4.
Yeah.
So we were like a clown car. We would all get in, and then I don't know if there were seatbelts. Unclear to me. I don't remember. I just remember it was chaos in the car, and it was chaos getting to the car. That was my memory of many years of us all going to parochial school, going to the Catholic school together. So my memory is, Megan, that we would be getting ready to go to school, and there were no less than like every other day that you were running out of the house with like one shoe. And then somebody would have to run back in and find the other shoe. Or you might have forgotten your underpants, or you might have forgotten to eat something, or, right? There were just many days. And I didn't know what day it was going to be. Most of the time you had a shirt on, so that was good. But one of the symptoms they said was forgetfulness. So I was wondering, like, your perception of that. And I'm wondering if there's a positive on the other side of it as well. Your memory of remembering to do things. Do you remember carpool?
Oh, well, kind of. I mean, I struggle remembering a lot from that time period, but also I think I struggle to remember in general because I have short-term memory loss. So,
and is that part of
helpful.
ADHD, or is that just separate? Do you think
so. I think it's separate because there are people who've got great memories. I think I struggle. I don't know. I only know me, but I for sure know that I have short-term memory loss. So like remembering things is a challenge. But on the flip side, I can watch a show from start to finish, and within like a couple of months I can rewatch it again. It's like I've never seen it before. It's the greatest thing ever.
You're like Dory.
Yes,
Just keep swimming.
Just keep swimming. Yep, that's right. That's me.
So you don't hold a grudge because you can't remember what the grudge would be about.
It's kind of true. It's kind of true because I'm like, I know I'm mad. I can't remember why I'm mad.
Okay, so let's just go through though, like getting you've come up with some strategies which we'll get into later, but just the idea of leaving your house, you've talked to me about this before, is quite challenging. You know, if you've got to go do something during the day.
Yeah, no, you describing carpool is still describing me to this very day. Minus, I always put on underwear, people. Okay, let's just start there. I figured, well, most of the time.
Okay, we won't go into that
we're
too far.
We're going to say yes.
Yeah. Yes, we're going to say yes
probably,
to underwear.
I don't know.
Do you still have a shoe issue? Do you still like lose a shoe?
Yes, I do. I have like these flip-flops for the beach, and I totally lost one of them, and it had gone underneath the dresser. And I was like, wait, where's the other one? It took me a while. Yeah, no, I still do.
So let's dig into this a little bit then. I want to dig into your brain. So let's just start with a morning. You wake up. Okay, let's say it's like a kind of a regular day. You've got some energy and you're just getting up, getting ready to go. All right, so take me through what that looks like for you. You're like waking up, you see Daisy, the dog is there with you probably. What happens?
She's usually on top of me. Well, it's hard to get up. So I have learned to put my alarm on the other side of my bedroom. And as soon as I get up, like I have to just be up. Because if I snooze, then it makes it that much harder for me to get up. So that's the first thing. But like it's every part of my body is achy. So I don't think that has to do with ADHD particularly, but getting the motivation to want to get out of bed is really hard because it's something I don't want to do. And finding that inner motivation, for lack of a better word, to get out of bed is just difficult.
Well, I think that actually can have something to do with it, right? Because that's sort of that executive functioning piece that we've been talking about, that butler that's like, come on, let's go, get your stuff on, go do this, go do that. And if you're already having your chronic fatigue or whatever other ailment in addition, it makes sense that the ADHD could compound it for sure.
Yeah.
Right? Because there isn't that thing telling you to go do the next thing.
Yeah, it's really challenging. Yeah, because I don't have like mom coming in and saying, "Get out of bed, Megan."
There's nothing internal doing that either, it sounds like.
No, nothing. Like the internal
Nothing.
part of me is saying, "Go back to bed. What are you doing? Leave me alone. Why are you trying to wake me up?" It's just as upset with an alarm.
Yeah. Okay, so let's say you get up, right? And
yeah.
we're past the part where you've now had this argument with yourself for 4 hours or whatever it is. And then you get going. Like, what is it that gets you out the door with all of the things that you need to do? Or like, what's happening in your brain? Like, are you having a little movie in your brain? Is there nothing happening in your brain? Like, what's going on?
There's nothing happening in my brain. Yeah. I am grasping to try to cobble together any kind of movement or movie or understanding of what to do.
Every morning.
Yeah, every morning. There is not a morning that I'm like, "Oh yeah, this makes sense and this is what I do every morning." It is That's why rituals and habits become really, really important. Because if I don't have a habit, then I don't know what to do with myself. And just recently, I've started laying out the drawer in my bathroom. I've sort of laid it out in a counterclockwise way where I have all of the items that I need to do. And it's very clear to see them all. And it's like almost like a prop table from my bathroom where I know, okay, I can look back at it and see, did I touch all of the items that I needed to touch today? And if I haven't touched them all,
can you
I'm like,
explain what a prop table is really quick? Like, what do you mean by prop table?
Yeah. So in the theater, for every show you have, there's all these props that actors have to use. And notoriously, and I am an actor, just to be clear, but notoriously actors forget things or they keep holding on to props and then they wander off and then the props get lost. So just outside of the wings of the stage is a table on both sides, depending on which side they exit on. And there's a table with usually like craft paper covering it. And then there's a specific place that is outlined. Like say you're holding a gun, right? There is a gun-shaped outline on the craft table that says gun. And sometimes it'll even tell the actor which actor it is, if there's multiple guns, let's say. So that as soon as you leave the stage, you put that thing back on its specific spot so that you can visually tell at the end of the night if you have all your props. And then if you're missing something, you can say, "Oh, okay, I'm missing this prop." If something like crazy happens, right? But it's just a great visual reminder and it makes it really easy to inventory items quickly.
So you're doing that for your bathroom.
Kind of. Like I'm working on it because like I've learned recently that I have more energy at night than I do in the morning. And so it makes more sense, like if I'm doing my face routine, that I do the things that I'm supposed to do at night and then leave just a few things to do in the morning because I have less energy and less focus. So it's almost like I need two drawers. I need a morning drawer and an evening drawer, but I only have enough space for one drawer. So I've been trying to figure out a way to make it work. So for instance, if I'm looking at my drawer, right, I've got in the lower left-hand corner, and then I've got like my eye cream just a little bit above that. And then right above that, I have this like azelaic acid or something that my dermatologist told me I have to use for my rosacea. Okay, so I have that. Then immediately to the right of that, I have some Aquaphor because I still have a scar that I'm covering up at night that I'm trying to heal on my face. And then right below the Aquaphor, I've got like my bandages for my little face. And then to the right of the Aquaphor, I've got my sunscreen for the morning. And then to the right of the sunscreen, I have my moisturizer.
I'm sorry I interrupted, but it's interesting to watch you as you're saying this because you're literally pointing to all the places on your desk that are the same places probably in your drawer. So you have this like kinesthetic kind of thing going on with the memory of it, which is super interesting.
Yeah. And honestly, if I could have a prop table in my bathroom, it would be helpful because then if I run out of something, I know, oh, I need to buy this, or I know exactly where to put it back.
I'm seeing like a whole line of products for ADHD people that's like a little sticker that's like, here's where you put your shoes. Here's where your keys go. Here's where you're like,
true.
don't forget your kid, whatever it is that you.
I totally need all those stickers because
Yeah.
if I have a specific place, I think my hyper focusing ability will allow me to put it back. Mm-hmm. If I can see it, and I'm like, oh, yes, you're right. That's where I put my shoes. And I've decided that's where I put my shoes. That would make sense to me.
Oh my gosh, you should completely do this with the Cricut or the cry cut or whatever, however you say it. But you should make yourself like a little shoe outline and put it somewhere like for your beach stuff and try it out and come and tell us if it worked.
Okay, I will.
Well,
that would be cute.
I'll remind you, obviously, but I've got one job on this ship. It's stupid.
It's amazing. It's not stupid. It's so important.
So we're kind of going into this idea, though, of getting yourself out in the morning. You do your routine in the bathroom because you've created this. Then what happens? What's going on in your brain once you're done with your routine to get ready?
Well, then I have to remember if I took my thyroid medicine.
Okay.
Because I have a thyroid condition where I take a medicine every day at the same time every day, which is for an ADHD person.
That's real. That's real. That's a struggle.
It's a real challenge. Then I know I'm supposed to have food, so I probably need to eat breakfast, but what kind of breakfast? I don't know. Is there food prepared? I don't know. But that's about it. This is where I'm at right now. I've now done my face and I'm like, okay, now what? And I kind of just wander around aimlessly in my house. Oh, I'm sure there's something that I have to do. And I can visually see things I need to do. So I'm like, oh, I'll just do that. And then I'll do that. And I'm like, oh, I forgot to do that.
So when you were going to school, you knew you had to go to school.
Yeah.
That was part of the routine. So that was different. Because now you have a job that you work from home, so you have a lot more options with your day, right? Or was school even a little bit fuzzy? Was it like, I don't know, is today a weekday or is today a weekend? Or?
No, it was a lot easier with structure. So I will say, okay, I have like 4 things in my head right now, and I'm trying to figure out which one to talk about first.
Break them down. We'll break them down. Give us one of them.
Okay, so when I think about grad school, I would get up and hope to God that I had whatever tasks I needed to do, I could get them done. But I didn't have like a set routine. So sometimes I would be brushing my teeth the very first thing in the morning, or I'd forget to brush my teeth, or I'd be like getting some gum from the local bodega, whatever it was. I'd get my bag ready, trying to find things. And it was a constant struggle. It was just like, okay, I would try sometimes putting things out the night before, but then I couldn't figure out how to keep it consistent, right? So that was always the hard thing. I was always like rushing out the door and just barely making it to school on time. And I did finally in grad school figure out, okay, Megan, you have to give yourself like an hour to get there. Because, I had to walk to the train station, get on a train. Like I had those.
You were in New York, for grad school.
Yeah.
So that was a big city.
And so I probably could have gotten it down to like 30 minutes. But I knew that I would be late, and in the theater, to be early is to be on time is to be late, and to be late is unacceptable. So that was the one thing I understood. So I would give myself like double the amount of time I needed. And I just knew that I would forget stuff. And this has been a consistent thing even to this day. Like I will leave my house, and then as I'm walking out the door, I'm like, oh, I forgot something. So I go back in the house and then I find that thing. And then I leave the house again. Oh, I forgot something else. So then I go back and I go get it. And it's always something different. It's not the same thing I forget. It's like, oh, one day it's my keys, a book for school, or I forgot my lunch on the counter, or my water bottle, or whatever it was I needed for that day. Some props that I needed to take with me to school. It's always something.
Yeah.
So always something. I think the consequences of life, when you don't have anybody else telling you what to do, you learn really quickly. Like you rely on yourself and you find ways to hack your ADHD, or you're going to fail. I did fail a lot.
So how is that different than your younger schooling days?
Well, I think the younger schooling days are still similar. The difference is that my brain hadn't fully formed yet to be able to understand that I had to be responsible for it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's reminding me of this conversation I had with Brian, my husband. We're watching young Sheldon right now. And as the kid's growing up, his voice is getting really, really deep. And, Sheldon on The Big Bang is not deep. And so I'm listening to this kid with his voice. So I was asking Brian, I'm like, how does this work? I'm asking him all these questions about the vocal mechanism. And he was saying that a lot of it is that, you're in this low voice that you don't realize you're in. But can you go into it a higher register? And he's like, well, you can, but you don't know how to control it yet. So you have this brand new mechanism in your throat that you're learning how to control. And it takes time in order to build that muscle to figure out how to utilize your voice and not have it crack unexpectedly or whatever it is. And I feel a lot like that's sort of my brain. Is that my brain in the beginning, it's like all of these new senses and new things that need to be discovered. And I didn't know how to self-regulate because it's a muscle, ultimately. It's something that you have to learn over time and have to get better at, and also not shame yourself. Because that's a huge, this is the part where the whole symptoms and disorder part really initially puts a ton of shame on the individual with ADHD, that the way that you were born is not okay. And so you now have to change. And that every time you do any of these things, this forgetfulness, anytime you struggle and have to go back into the house and find whatever it is you need to find, it's your fault. You're to blame. Your brain is the one that's the problem. Because if you just had a different brain, you would have remembered that shoe. If you had just had a different brain, you would have been ready 20 minutes ago.
I think I have some of that too. So I will say that I did have a boyfriend who once said, Michelle, you just need to get a big red bucket and put those keys in the big red bucket. And I was like, but then I'm going to lose the bucket. I just couldn't. So I think I have some of this as you're talking about it. In watching you as you were little, and we oftentimes, it was just the three of us kids getting out the door, it was super frustrating because in addition to the forgetfulness, there was also sort of a playfulness, which is so beautiful on the other side of this. It's really a fun part of you, but really hard when something needs to get done. And so you would be playing, like you would be hide and go seek with your shoes and looking and like up on a chair and underneath a thing. And you made a game out of it because I think it probably was frustrating for you too. But you made a game out of it, which was so cute until finally I was like, we need your shoe. So I feel like you probably got yelled at. I mean, I don't remember yelling at you, but I could imagine I did a lot. And that your name constantly being like, Megan, because there was always something that we were looking for. And I was thinking about that in how you're saying you have to be so kind to yourself. And I can imagine that others, including myself, weren't being kind about it. I don't think we understood what it was either, but that's got to be so hard because it's already hard. And now you've got people being really negative to you about it.
Yeah. And I think you don't know something's a problem until others point it out. So, we were just last week talking about taste and how someone was saying, oh, I wish I could experience that. And it's like, yeah, it is a really cool thing to experience, but it is also a double-edged sword because I'm experiencing it every second of every day. And then that's part of the attending issue.
So when you're leaving a space, is it that your brain's already on to something else? And so you're not really present trying to put all your things together? Or is it?
It's a good question. I'm just like trying to go on my walks right now. I've sort of set up my front area to have all the things I need before I leave. But when I'm getting ready, it's like I know I have to be somewhere at a certain time, and the stress of getting to that place at a certain time is all I'm thinking about. Like, I got to get there. I got to be on time. And then, okay, I got like my key, I got my purse. Awesome. Head into the door, lock the door. Great. Sitting in the car, and then I kind of take a moment and I breathe for a second. I'm like, okay, I'm in the car. Because I know like once I'm in the car, I'm almost there. And so I think my brain stops stressing and then something pops in like, oh, hey, you forgot your sunglasses. And then it's like, ugh, I get so frustrated with myself. I'm like, fine, go back and get it. Sometimes I'll even be driving somewhere and I'm like, I'm chapstick. Chapstick is like the one thing, if my lips are chapped, that is the biggest way that I will not be able to attend because like all I can feel are my chapped lips and I have to have chapstick. And so if I know I forgot my chapstick, I will turn my car around. But then sometimes it like depends. Well, how far have I gone? If I'm just still in my neighborhood, cool, I'll turn my car around. And even then I get frustrated because I've done this before. But then if I'm halfway there, it's like I can't do that. So I just know that it's going to be a miserable day. Or I'm like, do I have lotion in my bag? Can I use lotion on my lips? Like, do I have something else? Do I have some lip gloss even? But I start panicking because I know I don't have, like, there's certain things if I don't have, I know it's just going to be a miserable day. And I think it's just that, like, I don't have this thought process of, like, I have to do this and then this and that. I don't have that list thing going on. I'm just sort of winging it every minute of my life. Wow. And I'm like, okay, well, hopefully I get there. Like, hopefully it works out.
Yeah. I mean, I can imagine just how disorienting it can be.
Yeah, it's very disorienting. I don't know from day to day, like, what part of my brain is going to show up and what part is not. And what thing I did the day before is going to screw me over the next morning. Having some sort of formality is really important. Because, you know, when I was deciding to go to grad school, for those who don't know, I went to grad school for acting and I got a master's in fine arts. And when I was applying to schools, I remember people just telling me, like, why are you doing this? You can just go and spend a lot less money and piece together your education, go to this class, do this, do that. And I just was like, I instinctually knew, I was like, that is not something that is helpful for me. I need structure if I'm going to learn this. And that is why, as much money as my graduate degree was, and it's a whole other topic, a totally different podcast, it was the best decision for me to make in that moment. And it is part of the challenge I have right now where, since I'm working from home, trying to figure out what is this thing for me that works? How do I create structure for myself? And what does that look like? And I'm having to learn it for myself. And that's a whole new challenge that I've never really given myself the opportunity to discover.
That's really powerful. Does it feel like you're making progress with it? Or does it feel like it's out of reach?
Yeah. Well, the fact that I have a prop table in my bathroom.
It's a really big deal. Yes.
It's a big deal. Yeah. The fact that I'm getting up every morning and I'm making food for myself, that's a big deal. And it's probably not a big deal to a lot of people, but to me it is. And I just keep listening to a lot of different people. I just like every day I'm just waking up and I'm listening to people about decluttering, about organizing, about ADHD. Like, I'm just listening to all these different voices and opinions and taking from them what makes sense for me in my life. Because every ADHD person is different. Really, what I'm trying to figure out is that I would never have thought that as a person with ADHD, I could run my own business because I'm too disorganized, I'm too forgetful, I'm too symptomatic. But I think that's the part right now where I'm wanting to challenge myself and say, no, I'm a capable and strong human being and I can figure this out. But I have to allow myself the opportunity to figure it out.
And give yourself that time.
Yeah. Because it's not just going to happen overnight. It's not like you just all of a sudden figure it out. It's like I literally am taking it week by week by week. This last week, I've been working on movement and just getting out of my house and moving more. The few weeks before that, I was just working on food and like making food at home. And so like I'm just piecing together all of these little things every week, one bit at a time. And I'm trying to give myself grace. For instance, yesterday, my husband and I, we went out to the beach. I've been trying to walk more. And you told me this great story about our great uncle who, after the Korean War, he only had one lung left. And his doctor said, you can survive. You just have to start walking 5 miles a day. You're not going to start that, right? But you get to work your way up. And so you and I, when you came to visit, I showed you the place where I go to walk. And you're like, well, where do you think is an unrealistic expectation? I'm like, okay, there's a hotel all the way out there, all the way across the bay. And that just seems unrealistic to me. But in the last week, I've already gotten a half a mile to my location. And it's a half a mile back. So I've been walking a mile, whereas like a year ago, I couldn't even walk for more than 4 minutes without being overwinded from the long COVID.
Wow.
So yesterday, Brian and I went and we walked, and I came back and I was just exhausted. And so I took a nap. I did a few things around the house, but I didn't do much else. And normally I would be like, Megan, you're such a lazy slob. Like, you need to get up. I would be just berating myself the entire time. And I didn't do that yesterday because I was like, no, right now I am working on movement this week. That's what I've just chosen to work on. And I got out and I walked a mile. And that movement means that my day was successful.
I love that.
I started also picking up a sand dollar every time I go out with myself, because my goal is I want to be able to like put all the sand dollars together to show myself how far I've come. So like if every sand dollar counts as a day, and like how many sand dollars do I have at the end of it all? And it was funny because we couldn't find sand dollars because it was really high tide yesterday. And so we found this other seashell, and I was like, you know what? It's kind of perfect because the sand dollars represent me going on my own, and then these other shells will represent anytime I go with another person. So like as this process is going, I'm going to be able to see like how much is me, and then how many times did I have people helping me along the way.
I love that, Megan. That's so beautiful. And I love the thought of you having that visual reminder too, because you do forget. So on those days when maybe it's harder to be kind to yourself, you can look back at that and say, but look at what I've been doing. I'm so excited for you too with movement. I think that's just phenomenal.
Thank you. But I think the visual reminder goes back to forgetfulness, and that it's really easy for me to forget how much I've done and how hard I'm working. Yeah. And so whatever visual reminder that I can give myself, that is sort of the double edge of this, right? Is that I have to figure out how to use it to my advantage. And I think in some ways, like I can come up with these really amazing ways to remind myself that maybe others wouldn't think about. Yeah. And it's a really personal thing for me that I can, because I have this forgetfulness, I've come up with these fun ways to gamify it, you know, for me.
Ever since you were little, you always have, I think, as I'm thinking back on it. And I'm so glad we're having this conversation, because I think it gives me permission also that when I forget things, that this is kind of a normal part of life for so many people. And just for people, some people have it much more severely than others. I'm finding cool ways to remind yourself of things. I love this prop table idea. I kind of actually did that for myself in my entryway, even to the point of I put my purse first, and then I have a big bag for lunch stuff, and I have a big bag for my computer bag, and I put those on separate. And that was because like every time I was getting to the car, I was always putting my purse on over these big bags, and then I'm trying to put down the big bags first, and they get stuck in my purse, and I was getting really frustrated. So I'm getting to work already frustrated with life. So, you know, taking time to figure out what your routines are to make your life a little better, a little easier for anyone, I think is useful. For you, it sounds like a lifeline though.
Yeah. I think it's cool that you figured out the cycle, right? The 1, 2, 3 of it. You're taking the prop table to like a next level, which is pretty cool. You can have the items on the table, but if you put them in a very purposeful way, they kind of just naturally flow. And I think that's kind of cool what you're doing. Like you're saying, okay, I'm going to put this bag first, second, and third, so that when I put them on, it makes the experience better. And I think that that's like, when we talk about the flip side and the gift of ADHD, yes, it is a lifeline, because I don't think like normal people, I can come up with these really creative solutions that actually can help normal people and
help
provide
anybody. Sure.
Yeah. And provide this just sort of grace to themselves, right? You're saying that it just helps your day start off better.
Yeah, it's a gentler entry. It's a very small thing, but when you're not getting your hair wound up with your bags or whatever, it matters. So it's like taking that time to be purposeful and think about what's going to work for you. And I love that you're giving yourself time to do that as well. I'm curious what other people in our community might do. What other sort of maybe hacks? I think you called it a ADHD hack or something. I think that's so great. But what other ones other people have as well? Because I think having a conversation around that and like you said, you're listening to a lot of people, you're trying things on, you're seeing what works, what doesn't, and trying to figure out, okay, this week I can't focus on everything all at once, but I can try this, right? So I think that would be really interesting to hear what other people think about it as well.
Yeah, because just because it works for one ADHD person doesn't mean it works for everybody.
Right.
Because we're all so different in our brains. I've fallen into the trap where I'm listening to somebody, I'm like, that's a really great hack. And then I try it and it doesn't work for me. And so then I'm shaming myself all over again. Well, if I had the right kind of ADHD brain, and it's
not only
like,
are
no,
you ADHD, you're not the right ADHD. Yeah, got it.
Right. And so I think it's easy to fall into that trap. And so if there's other people who have ideas of how they get through their mornings, like I'm still trying to figure out all of it too. So I would love to know what you guys do, because it might help me to try out some of your tips and tricks. And you know what, if you do leave me a comment about what you guys do, I'll try it out and I'll tell you how it goes,
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for talking with me today, Meg and Rose.
Thanks for listening, Michelle Marie.
Love you. Bye.
I love you too. Bye. That was another episode of Sisters Sisters. Thanks for joining us on our new series focusing more specifically on ADHD and its symptoms. If you enjoyed this episode as much as we enjoyed talking to each other, please share it with someone you think would benefit from this conversation. Also, make sure to follow us on whatever platform you're currently listening to so that you can get notified each week. Next week, we'll be exploring the topic of organization. But until then, I hope you have a great week, and remember, stay curious. Michelle, I'm totally going to out myself because I legitimately do sometimes. I'm like, just got to get somewhere, and I have to go to especially during the pandemic, you just got to get somewhere, and I had a muumuu on, but I didn't have underwear on, and I just went, and I was like, forget it, I'm just going, and I just went. I didn't have underwear on, and I was like, well, oh well, just went and did it. Who's gonna know? Who's gonna know? It's like you're wearing a dress, and you're sitting down. Who's gonna know?
Gosh, with what people wear nowadays, I feel like lack of underwear under a muumuu is the least of our worries. You know what I mean? There's every body part showing nowadays. So I feel like that's totally okay. I'm going to give it a pass for sure. So is that though because you forgot or is it because you just didn't want to?
It's because I forgot whatever it was I needed to go do. And then the moment I remembered it, I don't have time to put on underwear. I got to go.
I could forget what I'm going to go do.
Or I'm going to forget. Yes. And so it's that important. I had to get some medication from Walgreens, let's say. And it's okay, I keep forgetting to go. So I got to go and do it. And so we have to you just go. Probably because I also forgot the fact that I didn't do my laundry. So it's oh shoot,
there are no underwear.
Do this thing. Yes, there are no underwear. So that's probably, or they're in the washing machine, but I forgot to put it into the dryer. So now I have to redo the load of laundry because I forgot to put it in the dryers. Yeah, well, it's somehow it's a forgetful thing.